Except for the effects on the population of the Baltic countries, of European countries, Russia uses so-called soft power to affect the politicians of this country. So next information I would like to add about these situations. Russian special services hold fake rallies in European countries to influence the politics of other countries. This is stated in a journalistic investigation by the Swedish publication SVT. Journalists believe that the Russian-inspired the January incident with the public burning of the Quran in front of the Turkish embassy in Stockholm, due to which Ankara has still not approved Sweden's association to accession to NATO. In addition, the documents obtained by the journalists contain report on one such action held by the Russians on March 5 in Paris. In addition, the publication claims to have found 10 episodes with clearly staged rallies where participants criticized the European Union, NATO and Ukraine. And this is only for the last 6 months. So my question is how politicians, the politicum, I would say, of your country is cleaned from the Russian influence, and how strong the political will is to stop such incidents that I mentioned right now from the journalistic investigations.
Basically, it's good news that Estonia in particular and Baltic states in general, they understand very well what Russia is and how dangerous is Russian influence. Actually, for many years, Baltic states warned our Western allies that actually policy to Russia should be much more tough, and for many years, our Western partners were saying something like, you are too alarming, you have historical kind of complexes whatsoever, you should change it. But after the full-scale invasion, a number of the prime ministers, including Finnish prime minister, they actually admitted the Baltic states were right, and it was wise to listen them carefully. So that's why now our Western allies are much more accurate as to our recommendations, and actually in that sense there are no clear pro-Russian parties here. There are some parties there. We can find some pro-Russian politicians. First of all, it's so-called centrist party, which in reality is more like leftist populists. There are also far-right Estonian Conservative Party. There are also sometimes you can hear some statements which could be more or less in line with Russian propaganda, but it's more or less because as any kind of far-right, they have xenophobic, LGBT-phobic, whatever, and they have kind of similar slogans with Russia. But then absolutely clear movement cause, which means Together, was created just several months ago. The leaders were clearly pro-Russian affiliated. One of the leaders of this movement even visited occupied territories of Ukraine, Mariupol in particular. As soon as he returned to Estonia, he was arrested, and after that, now he's under investigation. Another one fled to Russia, and now he's located there. So basically, if there is a clear people who work in favor of Russia, we have a very strong and quick reaction from our law enforcement bodies. So in that sense, there is certain consensus and all Estonian parties, parliamentary parties, that Ukraine should be supported, and Estonia is one of the most supportive countries. It's not a very well-known fact, but if we will compare by GDP percent, Estonia provides biggest assistance to Ukraine in the world. So Estonia spent more than 1% of GDP. There are only two countries in the world which spend more than 1% of GDP to support Ukraine. It's actually Estonia and Latvia. So it's clearly there is a consensus between politicians, between Estonian society, at least Estonian part of it.
Still, I want to ask you some kind of moral question, maybe, because I still don't understand. Acknowledging all the atrocities that are made here in Ukraine by the Russian aggressors, by Russian soldiers, you mentioned about this, the quantity of these atrocities, of these cases. Still, I don't understand what are the motive for supporting the Russian vector for those people who have a EU passport, I mean European passport, and what or who provoked them for such, I'd say, non-standard behavior within the country of European Union and the country of NATO. So what motivates them? I understand that this would be your point of view, but still I'm trying to understand their motives.
Basically, as I said, of course, a lot of such peoples, they are actually descendants of Russian occupiers. They had with, which were brought here during the Soviet occupation. During the Soviet occupation, we were always kind of privileged class here. And now, of course, then they should be like others. It's a kind of step back for them. Let's put it this way. Russian propaganda was always active, as I said, and it's always tried to present situation that Russian people are kind of object of discrimination in Estonia and Latvia, which is not true, of course. But point is that it was always provided for them kind of excuse if they are simply losers. Because if you're Estonian loser, or drunkard or whatsoever, you're simply drunkard and loser. If you're a Russian loser here, you're automatically victim of discrimination. You know? And it's always easier to feel that it's not your own problems, it's always kind of influence of this hostile force, you know. It's one answer. Another answer, of course, as I said, it's very heavy Russian propaganda, as I mentioned before. Before the full-scale invasion, it was fully available in Estonia. But coming back to these numbers of Russian war crimes, I didn't finish my idea. The point is that if I will take this number, if I will take occupied territories, I can easily multiply 2 times, so it's approximately 200,000 war crimes. It's more or less equal to the all Russian troops in Ukraine, which were at least originally. That means that every single Russian soldier, surgeon, junior or higher officer, general, commander-in-chief Putin, they are involved in war crimes on all levels. Conscripts, mobilized, professional army, it's regular husbands, regular sons, brothers, fathers. And then somebody saying that it's Putin's war, not Russia war. Of course, it's the most horrible lie which you can hear, and unfortunately you can hear it a lot, even in Western media. So this number, this figure, clearly shows that it's war of entire Russian people. And it's not simply war of entire Russian people, it's a war of the nation which commit war crimes on all levels, on unprecedented numbers. And it should be very clear for everybody. And we discuss, for example, with visa-free regime, harboring of people who escape mobilization, whatsoever. As I said, Russian society is really sick because of years, decades of propaganda, negative selection, and it's really security threat for the Europe. Because, if you will take the list of war crimes, which you can find in public international law and the law of war, there is no any single war crime which was not committed by Russian troops. Starting from soldiers who simply looting everything from washing machine till used underwear, bullet balls whatsoever, and ending by officers who actually give an order to bomb hospitals, shelters, critical civilian infrastructure, to blow up Kakhovskaya dump, which is real ecocide, etc.